So, Matt, thank you for giving me the time, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
A conversation with you. So, main question is, why Sussex, brother?
I got suckered in by a Sussex County woman.
No way.
Yep. Her name's Kern. She was born and raised here, mainly in Lewis. And I love her. She is the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, without a doubt. Hands down, over the past 9 years, that woman and I have been through hell and back with just situations that life would just drop in our lap. And we always came out better on the other side. She gave me two most beautiful children I could ever possibly imagine. She's helped structure my life. I mean, she is my main reason for being here. And yeah, I found something in her I couldn't find anywhere else. I've been to a bunch of places. I grew up in Bethlehem, and I lived in New York for a short period. Lived in Philly for a short period. But her heart and her outlook on life and the way she views her own struggle, and I mean, she's incredible.
Awesome. So, and we were talking earlier, so you've lived in Spanish Harlem.
For a little bit.
PA, Philadelphia. What's unique about living in Sussex County?
I mean, to raise kids, they call it lower, slower Delaware, which I think is funny. I got a 16-year-old with an LSD sticker on the back of her car. And I have to tell her, that might be slightly inappropriate if you go across the state line. People don't really understand, but it really is kind of a slower form of life. You can enjoy some of those old school things that we're kind of losing touch with in this country. I live in a nice little development where it kind of looks like Leave It to Beaver threw up all over the place, and I could have my dogs and take them for walks. I'm outside doing yard work as soon as the weather gets nice, which I got to fix my lawnmower. But I think just being able to find a good job and live and be comfortable, and this idea of the American dream is still very much alive here. You go to another area where it's building up, and kind of people are on top of each other, stepping on each other's toes. And down here, you only really have that in the summer, 3 months out of the year. I mean, it's kind of chaotic down here, but the rest of the months out of that year are pretty serene and beautiful. We have some of the cleanest beaches I've ever seen. I enjoy surfing. The waves aren't incredible, but they're good. And when they are good, you got to take advantage of it. And the people down here are some of the nicest I've ever met. And that's key. When you feel comfortable in your community and you feel like there's a chance to grow and see kind of these changes evolving. I mean, when I first moved down here, almost 10 years ago, this idea of fine dining was kind of here. There were a few restaurants that were really pushing. You have Lion Gardner at the Blue Moon. I love that man. He cooks food from his heart. He's one of the owners, and he's the executive chef. You have Hari Cameron. He's the chef at Amuse. That man's a genius. I mean, genius level. He's also been up for a James Beard nomination a couple of times. We had Brenton Wallace. He just recently sold Crust and Craft, but he was kind of a big player and played a huge impact. Rob Legetts, he's the chef at Cantina Ultima in Milton. Dude, everything I've ever had from that man punches you in the face with flavor. I mean, there are some really, really good people here pushing to show how good food should be and can be. And I'm excited to be a part of that. Like I was kind of touching base with, like the idea of reality television has kind of ruined the real image of a chef, and they don't really portray this true image, outside of work. None of us are in competition with each other. We're not trying to have this blowout war with each other. We just want to hang out, get a beer, talk some trash, have a good time, maybe go get some tacos at La Sierra and chill. Most of us got families, and that little piece of the pie kind of goes a long way when you feel comfortable in your own community. And
man, that is awesome. Listening to you, all that I'm thinking about is your passion, right? Because sounds like when I was a kid, I was big into baseball. Reggie Jackson was the hero,
yes.
Right? And what you just did, you just mentioned the all-stars of your field.
Yep.
So I hear you can cook.
That's what they say.
You can cook.
That's what they say.
Like, this guy can cook.
I got into food when I was young. My parents divorced. My dad married into this huge Italian family, and I met my stepmother. Her name's Gina, and she was no gourmet cook, but she made the best home cooked food I've ever had to date. She'd make risotto one night, and then the next night she'd make risotto cakes. You didn't waste food. You didn't miss dinner. You sat at that table every day as a family, and that played a huge role in my come up and thinking what food really was. And I remember at 14, I had to go get a job. My parents were like, "You want a car when you're 16? You got to buy it." And I started washing dishes. Nobody special. I worked at this little kind of like French patisserie and restaurant right in like downtown Bethlehem. And I'd show up every day and start scrubbing pots and pans and 600 plates from lunch. And then I remember in the summers, the owner's son would run these gyro stands for like Mayfair, Music Fest, all these big events. So I found myself at 15 working 14-hour days, shaving lamb meat off of a spit and putting gyros together. Still to this day, I could eat as many gyros as you put in front of me. Tzatziki sauce is one of the greatest condiments known to man. But, I kind of wanted a little more. So I took a brief stint and worked at Perkins, which that was terrible. And that was my first introduction to corporate. I never want to be a breakfast cook ever again in my life. And I remember they talked about knife cuts and burns. I had gotten a steak knife about 5 inches into my hand. And it was the first time I had to go have exploratory surgery. And I remember them saying, well, we shouldn't have to pay for this. And it was from a rack that they put on a glass rack, and it had steak knives sticking out of it. And because of the weight, flipped over and just stabbed me in the hand. And I remember my stepmother, who was like a bulldog, went in there in front of an entire lunch service and reamed out the general manager until he finally agreed, like Perkins was going to cover the medical bills. So I left that job, and I started working at kind of like this old retirement home in the kitchen. And everything was like mechanical soft, everything was color coded, and I was like, well, this isn't what I want to do at all. I think I never had an idea where I wanted to be. I would just see where I didn't want to be. And that first job working under a French chef, I saw how much she cared, how much she loved what she did, how much of herself she put into that, and I respected that. When I was young, I thought I was going to be a professional musician. I was a blues musician. I played guitar. I sang, and I was like, "This is it. I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to do it, no matter what I got to do." So through high school, I, was still trying to get into bands, and I think in total I was in about 19 or 20 different bands, all the way through my early to late 20s. But I was still cooking in really good restaurants. I remember at 20, I was working at Bethlehem Brew Works. It was this big brew pub. And I felt, this sense of family because everybody was so tight, front of the house, back of the house. We all hung out after work. We would all crack jokes through work, and I loved that sense of community and friendship. You don't get that in any other industry. You really don't. I left there to go work at another French bistro called Starfish Brasserie under Chef Dick Barrows. And this man was like from a French lineage. He taught me a lot. You know, it was a whole new world of food that I didn't know about. And I was low man on the totem pole, so I had to adapt. And it was the first time I ever put a chef coat on. I was like, this is incredible. I want to do this forever. And, you know, slowly but surely, I would pick up more jobs. And then I landed this job at Bolit in Bethlehem. Now, they were up for Outstanding Restaurant. We worked in a 200-year-old inn. The dining room, the bar, it was elegant, old, and beautiful. The kitchen was a shed attached to the back. I'm not playing. It wasn't insulated, so in the winter it was freezing. In the summer it was really hot. And it's this tiny little kitchen that I have done some of the most incredible food out of that I've ever seen, that I've ever been a part of. That chef truly showed me there's nothing holding you back except for yourself. And he never let anything hold him down. There was no excuse. He would always make the best that he possibly could. He would always be kind to his staff, to his guests. He put everyone before himself, and that was awe-inspiring. It's like, okay, I want to be like you. You know, you kind of pick and choose your heroes in life, and this guy's one of them.
Brother, I got to tell you, you know, this is what I needed to sit with you. I needed to sit with you because I just heard a little bit of your story, and it's captivating. And for me, what it's doing to me is that what I'm hearing, not you an artist, right? You are an individual that through his work has enhanced himself, right? Because everything you're talking about can be applied to life.
For sure.
Be a good neighbor.
For sure.
You know, give to others.
Yep.
Give your best. Work hard. And at the same time, you are creating, enhancing.
Well, trying.
You're doing, brother. You're doing it, man. You know, and as we talk, I see your eyes water. You know, it's like you are. Man,
I'm in it.
You're in it.
I'm always in it. If I'm not in it, then I'm a cranky, miserable person, and nobody likes that.
And that's the community I want to be part of. You know, individuals, they are into their craft and enhancing their craft, and their craft is enhancing them. You know, being part of a culture of excellence and wonder. You know, I want to see unicorns. You know, I want to have fun, man. And when I saw you speak, I'm like, I have to meet this brother and be able. And look, in the few minutes that we talk, chuleta.
Yeah.
Talk to me about chuletas, man. Like.
I mean, I grew up.
A fan,
where I grew up.
Most people don't know what chuleta is. You know, I'm from Puerto Rico, and you just automatically connected with me and say, "Yeah, well, I know chuletas."
I grew up in a big neighborhood. You know, we had the big Irish Catholic, Black community, Puerto Rican community. There was a big Korean influx, and we had a lot of culture. You know, I remember walking to school. I mean, you still had cliques in school, but it didn't matter what color you were. You know, skaters, bikers, thugs, metalheads, and everybody was of all this different color and descent. And you don't appreciate that till later on when you don't have it, you know? And then you're like, well, wait a minute, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Like, I've seen real life. I grew up with that. You know, my best friend growing up was Black and Puerto Rican. His mom was from South Philly. His dad was from Spanish Harlem. And his dad used to be a DJ. This man had thousands of vinyl in his basement.
Sounds like my cousin. Might be my cousin.
and he's the one that turned us on to so many different forms of music. You know, and that's what we did. I bring my guitars, my hand drums over to their house. We'd have everything set up in the basement. We'd have a drum set. We had turntables, and we were kids. We were dumb kids, so we just messed around. But years and years and years of that messing around, and we started getting good at stuff. And we were like, well, we love this, you know, and we came together over a common ground, and it was music and our love of this culture. And never realized, like, I was, you know, kind of sneaking out on my parents' house to go over to his house to eat his mom's cooking because it was so good. And down the street there was this Puerto Rican bodega, man, and they had plátanos and batalillos and chuletas and
Stop playing.
I mean, look, to this day, man, you put a whole plate of fried plantains in front of me. I don't care if I just ate a Thanksgiving meal. I'm gonna house it. And that's food that I grew up as comfort food, and I still love it to this day.
I'm a grown man, right? I'm in my late 40s, and last Saturday, I'm out conducting business, and my mother calls me and said, "Hey, I want to cook some plátanos.
Yeah.
Can you go to the store?"
Yeah.
I went back to being 16.
Yeah.
I dropped everything that I was doing, and I ran to go get her some plátanos, and I know how she liked them.
Yep.
I know how green she wants them, and I just loaded up in some fresh garlic, and I was there within half an hour.
Yes.
Sitting by the kitchen stool, waiting on my mama to cook, and then afterwards, I'm like, okay, I was like, you working out, you doing all this thing, you just ate like 3 pounds, but it's food.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you too, so do you think that diversity that you experienced early on translated into how you are creating?
Of course. I take from every culture I've ever known. I mean, that's the one beautiful, the ultimate thing that we have in this country is our diversity. And you learn to use it and harness it. Where else can you get, 50 different cultures of food? You can go to D.C. right now, and literally you have all these different cultures of people coexisting and kind of showcasing their own community and their own roots as far as cuisine. And it all tastes good. I want all of it.
How does all that translate to your current community, man? Because you are a guy that's been all over.
I remember flavors. I think that's probably one of my best assets as far as being a cook, is I can remember these flavors and these textures. And I think textures play just as a significant role as the flavor of your food. You can eat a big plate of mashed potatoes and it tastes good, but after the first couple of bites, you're like, you just got mush mouth, and you can't taste anything else. So having your crunchy, your crispy, your creamy, your chewy, all these different levels. I look at food like it's Legos. I loved Legos when I was a kid. If I want to build something, you need different colors, different sizes. They all kind of intricately fit together, and I still look at a plate of food to this day like it's Legos.
That's what's up, man. I know that you wait. It's the 10 o'clock yet? It's not 10 o'clock yet? Okay, that's for a second. So I know you're waiting for your brother, man. I appreciate you. Thank you for the awesome opportunity to talk to you. And honestly, man, I want to continue this. Anything that I can do, or you and I can do together to just to have some fun and introduce individuals.
For sure.
Into what you're doing, man.
I mean, I hope now to start showcasing a lot of these farmers and watermen that we're trying to use. You look, you can open a restaurant, you can call up Cisco or US Foods, you can get all of these ingredients in that weren't grown around here, and you can make a plate of food and you can make it taste good. And that's what cooks are taught to do is make anything taste good. But to have a story behind your food and to know the hands that have handled your food, the dirt that it grew in, where it came from, and these families that survive off of this livelihood of procuring, growing, fishing, bringing to the table. Now all of a sudden this plate of food is something more special. It stands for a community. It gives us an identity. And I want to showcase that.